Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at Summer's Last Will and Testament, a play by Thomas Nashe from around 1592. Yes, we're back dancing in the 1590s, like raving all over again. So this is a text we're going to do in two sessions. We've got quite a lot of text to get through. It's got some quite chunky bits, but hopefully we will deliver them with aplomb and get a sense of how this particular text functions. It's a pleasant comedy, apparently, so we shall see how that all fares. Reading today, Will Summer is...
Hello, I'm Valentina. I'm an Italian actor and voiceover artist in London.
And then reading the personification of Summer is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian in Hull.
Being the personification of Autumn is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I almost forgot that.
And the personification of Winter is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott in Suffolk, and I've got my winter drawers on.
And Sol and occasional other all moments is...
Rachael, Nicole, actor in New Jersey.
And Solstitium is...
Hi, Tamara. I am an actor in Germany at the moment.
Reading Veer today is...
Hello, Dan, actor based in Montpellier, France.
And reading Vertumnus, or Vertumnus, I don't know how. Anyway, I'm going with Vertumnus because it sounds like something out of C.S. Lewis. Lynn, introduce yourself, please.
A teacher who lives in the northwestern United States.
Reading Orion and Harvest is...
Briony, Sparrow, actor in the Midlands.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading the occasional stage direction and keeping everything moving forward. Without further ado, we're going to dive into this play and find out a few interesting things about it. The play opens with Will Summer in his fool's coat, but half on, coming out.
Noctem peccatis et fraudibus obje numem. There is no such fine time to play the knave in as the night. I am a goose or a ghost, at least, for what with turmoil of getting my fool's apparel and care of being perfect, I am sure I have not yet supped tonight. Will Summer's ghost I should be, come to present you with Summer's last will and testament. Be it so, if my cousin Ned will lend me his chain and his fiddle, other stately paced prologues used to attire themselves within, I that have a toy in my head more than an ordinary, and used to go without money, without garters, without girdle, without hatband, without points to my hose, without a knife to my dinner, and make so much use of this word without in everything, will he address me without. Dick Huntley cries, "Begin, begin," and all the whole house, "For shame, come away," when I had my things but now brought me out of the laundry. God forgive me, I did not see my lord before. I'll set a good face on it, as though what I talked idly all this while were my part. So it is... Bon viri, that one fool presents another, and I, a fool by nature and by art, do speak to you in the person of the idiot of our play-maker. He, like a fop and an ass, must be making himself a public laughing-stock and have no thank for his labour, where other magisteri, whose invention is far more exquisite, are content to sit still and do nothing. I'll show you what a scurvy prologue he had made me, in an old vein of similitudes. If you be good fellows, give it the hearing, that you may judge of him thereafter.
We're going to pause here because Will Summer says quite a lot. And I think there's a lot of catching up to do with what's being said here. So Will Summer was a real person. He was a fool in the court of Henry VIII and beyond. So he's known as this figure from the past who was a natural fool who was kept within a certain court context. So here he's playing the ghost of, and he's late. for the performance. People have been crying for him off stage, presumably the prompter basically going, come on, you're late, and you come on, and then you notice the Lord in the household is there, so it's creating this sort of context of this performance, and it's all a little bit meta, just a little bit meta. I don't normally like to start with sort of explaining what's going on, but I think it's quite important that everyone in the room sort of is up to speed. And he's now going to perform the prologue, what he's been handed to perform, and already he's not very impressed. So we'll come to comments from the room in a moment, but let's get a little bit further in with that context, which I hope was useful. Let us have the prologue. I don't know if he says the prologue himself as well, or whether that's just a printing thing. Decide for yourself, Will. It's entirely up to you.
The prologue. At a solemn feast of the Triumvirate in Rome, it was seen and observed that the birds ceased to sing, and sat solitary on the housetops, by reason of the sight of a painted serpent set openly to view. So fares it with us novices that here betray our imperfections. We say to look on the imaginary serpent of envy, painted in men's affection, have ceased to tune any music of mirth to your ears these 12 months, thinking that, as it is the nature of the serpent to hiss, so childhood and ignorance would play the gosling, condemning that they understood not. Their censures we wait not, whose senses are not yet unswaddled. The little minutes will be continually striking, though no man regard them. Whelps will bark before they can see, and strive to bite before they can have teeth. Politianus speaketh of a beast who, while he is cut on the table, drinketh and represents the motions and voices of a living creature. Such like foolish beasts are who we woo, whilst we are cut, mocked, and flouted at, in every man's common talk, will notwithstanding proceed to shame ourselves to make sport. No man pleaseth all, we seek to please one. Diademus wrote 4,000 books, or, as some say, 6,000, on the art of grammar. Our author hopes it may be as lawful for him to write 1,000 lines of as light a subject. Socrates, whom the oracle pronounced the wisest man of Greece, sometimes danced. Scipio and Lazarus by the seaside played at Pebblestone. Semel insavimus omnes. Every man cannot with Archimedes make a heaven of brass, or dig gold out of the iron mines of the low. Such odd trifles as mathematicians' experiments be artificial flies to hang in the air by themselves, dancing balls, an eggshell that shall climb up to the top of a spear, fiery breathing gauze, poeta noster professeth not to make. Glaciat sibi quinque licebit. What's a fool but his bauble? Deep-reaching wits, here is no deep stream for you to angle in. Moralizers, you that wrest a nerve-meant meaning out of everything, apply all things to the present time. Keep your attention for the common stage, for here are no quips in characters for you to read. Vain glosers, gather what you will, spell backwards what thou canst. As the Parthians fight flying away, so will we prate and talk, but stand to nothing that we say.
And thus Will Summer puts down the prologue that has been handed and continues to talk in his own voice.
How say you, my masters? Do you not laugh at him for a coxcomb? Why, he has made a prologue longer than his play. Nay, 'tis no play neither, but a show. I'll be sworn the jig of Roland's godson is a giant in comparison of it. What can be made of Summer's last will and testament? Such another thing as Gillian of Brentford's will, where she bequeaths a score of farts amongst her friends. Forsooth, because the plague reigns in most places as in this latter end of summer, summer must come in sick. He must call his officers to account, yield his throne to autumn, make winter his executor with tittle-tattle tomboy. God give you good night in Waitling Street. I cannot what you say now, for I play no more than you hear, and some of that you heard too, by your leave, was extempore. He were as good have let me had the best part, for I'll revenge on him to the uttermost in this person of Will Summer, which I have put on to play the prologue, and meant not to put it off till the play be done. I'll sit as a chorus, and flout the actors and him that end of every scene. I know they will not interrupt me for fear of marrying of all, but look to your cues, my masters, for I intend to play the knave in cue, and put you besides all your parts. If you take not the better heed, actors, you rogue, come away, clear your throats, blow your noses, and wipe your mouths, ere you enter, that you may take no occasion to spit or to cough when you are nonplus. And these I bar. Over and beside that none of you stroke your beards to make action, play with your codpieces' points, or stand fumbling on your buttons when you know not how to bestow your fingers. Serve God and act cleanly. A fit of mirth and an old song first, if you will.
And there will be some additional action in a moment. Well done, Valentina, for that. There's lots of really interesting detail in that. There's lots of stuff about the time, which, of course, for us performing in a modern time creates lots of problems. But some things which are really nice, that Will Summer is there just going, I'm just going to sit at the side of the stage and just be really annoying. And then he starts giving actors notes on the things they shouldn't do. Don't do any beard acting. No, don't do any of that. No, don't. Figure out what you're doing with your hands. That's not a note that I've ever had to give before. So some things never change. We get references, Jig of Roland, which is a jig we actually do have reference to, so we can actually know what that's like in terms of length, and mentioning quips in characters, which is effectively a reference to another Nashe product. So yeah, it's full of in-references as well as more general stuff. I've witted on long enough. Thoughts on the room? Have I led the room too much? I will stop talking when people start waving at me. Lynn?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking the same thing you were thinking. Some of this is very time specific in his first passage, where he talks about his points and his girdle and his all these items of clothing that we don't wear anymore. So that's going to be a little opaque to a modern audience. But then make sure you've cleared your throat and blown you're all cleaned up and got the bodily fluids out of your head before you start, and don't fidget on stage. That kind of made me laugh because, yeah, some things never change.
And even if people don't necessarily get the specific clothing references there, they at least will be getting that, he's come on not fully dressed. He's not ready yet. So you can get the idea across, even if the exact words may not land for everyone. Briony?
It's a lot, but it's quite light still, and it's got a nice pace to it, and it's not one of these really long, put you to sleep kind of prologue situations. It is fun, even though some of it's like dated and not as relevant now. The fun and the pace is still in there.
Even the prologue, it's an interesting thing. We do have a boring prologue, but we're told it's a boring prologue, and presumably it's spoofing forms of prologue-ness, which oddly enough didn't land for me at all. I was not. There were a few bits in there where I was going, that sounds a bit like some things, but not so much. Lynn?
Yeah, the prologue proper particularly reminded me of Lily, with all the nature references, and that you start out with the metaphor of the birds and the snake, and you don't know where that's going until he makes the comparison. That, it seems to me, Lily makes that move a lot. So, and of course it's in prose, and maybe that's part of what reminded me of Lily, but it was reminiscent of Lily for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think with rehearsal and performance, it's a matter of you make it seem absurd in the way it's performed, because that's part of the joke here, is that this prologue is overblown on some level. Other thoughts, Alan?
So you're suggesting maybe that a presentational way of doing it will be for Summer to really ham up the formal prologue bit as he's taking the mick out of the playwright.
Maybe.
And the other thought I had, date-wise, this is pretty well right on top of Lily, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's just after Lily's, a couple of years after he's lost his theatre company, as it were. But there's a lot of great currency in the world, as it were. And, I'm sure there are other Lilies out there.
Consider the lilies of the field.
Anyway, we should get further on into the text. Any additional thoughts you had there, pile them in later on. So we don't have any scenes in this, because it's basically an ongoing series of actions, partly because, of course, Will Summer never really leaves. Or at least I don't think he does. So he said he's not going to leave anyway. Enter Summer, leaning on autumn and winter's shoulders, and attended on with a train of satyrs and wood nymphs, singing. You don't have to sing.
Fair summer droops, droop man and beast, therefore, so fair a summer look for nevermore. All good things vanish less than in a day. Peace, plenty, pleasure suddenly decay. Go not yet away, bright soul of the sad year. The earth is hell when thou leavest to appear. What shall these flowers that decked thy garlands erst upon thy graves be wastefully dispersed? O trees, consume your sap in sorrow's source. Streams turn to tears your tributaries course. Go not yet hence, bright soul of the sad year. The earth is hell when thou leavest to appear.
And the satyrs and wood nymphs go out singing, and leave summer and winter and autumn on the stage, and of course Will Summer.
A couple of pretty boys, if they would wash their faces and wear well bleached in an hour or two. The rest of the green men have reasonable voices, good to sing catches or the great Joban by the fireside in a winter's evening. But let us hear what Summer can say for himself, why he should not be hissed at.
What pleasure always lasts, no joy endures. Summer I am not what I was. Harvest and age have whitened my green head. On autumn now and winter I must lean. Needs must he fall whom none but foes uphold. Thus must the happiest man have his black day. Omnibus una manet nox, et calcanda semel via lethi. This month have I lain languishing abed, looking each hour to yield my life and throne, and died I had indeed upon the earth, but that Eliza, England's beauteous queen, on whom all seasons prosperously attend, forbade the execution of my fate until her joyful progress was expired. For her doth summer live and linger here, and wisheth long to live to her content. But wishes are not had when they wish well. I must depart. My death day is set down. To these two must I leave my wheaten crown, so to unthrifts rich men leave their lands, who in an hour consume long labour's gains. True it is that divine as Sidney sung, "Oh, he is marred that is for others made." Come near, my friends, for I am near mine end, in presence of this honourable train, who love me, for I patronize their sports. Mean I to make my final testament. But first I'll call my officers to count, and of the wealth I gave them to dispose, know what is left, I may know what to give. Vertumnus then, that turns the year about, summon them one by one to answer me. First the spring, unto whose custody I have committed more than to the rest, the choice of all my fragrant meads and flowers, and what delight soe'er nature affords.
I will, my lord. There, a lusty there, by the name of lusty there, come into the court. Lose a mark in issues.
And enter there with his train overlaid with suits of green moss, representing short grass, singing.
Spring, the sweet spring, is a year's pleasant king. Then blooms each thing, then maids dance in a ring. Cold doth not sting the pretty birds who sing. Cuckoo, juggy, juggy, poo-wee, too-wit-a-woo. The palm man may make country houses gay. Lambs frisk and play, the shepherds pipe all day. And we hear, aye, birds tune this merry lay. Cuckoo, juggy, juggy, poo-wee, too-wit-a-woo. The fields breathe sweet, the daisies kiss our feet. Young lovers meet, old wives are sunning seat. In every street these tunes our ears do greet. Cuckoo, juggy, juggy, poo-wee, too-wit-a-woo. Spring, the sweet spring.
By my troth, they have voices as clear as crystal. This is a pretty thing, if it be for nothing but to go a-begging with.
Believe me, there, but thou art pleasant bent. This humour should import a harmless mind. Know'st thou the reason why I sent for thee?
No faith, nor care not whether I do or no. If you will dance a galliard, so it is. If not, falentado, oh, falentado, oh, to wear the black and yellow, my mates are gonna follow.
Nay, stay a while. We must confer and talk. There, call to mind, I am thy sovereign lord, and what thou hast of me thou hast and holdest. Unto no other end I sent for thee, but to demand a reckoning at thy hands, how well or ill thou hast employed my wealth.
If that be all, we will not disagree. A clean chunch and a napkin you shall have presently.
The truth is, this fellow has been a topster in his days.
And there goes in and fetcheth out the hobby horse and the morris dance who dance about.
How now? Is this the reckoning we shall have?
Lord, he doth abuse you. Brook it not.
So Metatalis, I fear I will prove him but a fool.
About, lively, put your horse into it. Rein him harder, jerk him with your wand. Sit fast, man. Fool, hold up your ladle there.
Oh, brave Hall. Oh, well said, butcher. Now for the credit of Worcestershire, the finest set of Morris dancer that is between theirs and Streatham. Marry, methinks there is one of them dances like a clothier's horse, with a wool pack on his back. You, friends with a hobby horse, go not too fast, for fear of wearing out your lord's tilestones with your hobnails.
So. Shot the ring twice over and away. May it please my lord, this is the grand capital sum, but there are certain parcels behind, as you shall see.
Nay, no more, for this is all too much.
Content yourself, we'll have variety.
Here enter 3 clowns and 3 maids singing this song, dancing.
Trip and go, heave and ho, up and down, to and fro, from the town to the grove, 2 and 2, let us rove, a-maying, a-playing, love hath no gainsaying, so merrily trip and go.
Through my heart of a number of ill legs, I never saw worse dancers. How blessed are you that the wenches of the parish do not see you?
Oh, presumptuous ver, uncivil nurtured boy, think'st I will be derided thus of thee? Is this thy account and reckoning that thou makest?
Troth, my lord, to tell you plain, I can give you no other account, nam quac habuia predide. Where I have spent a good fellows. In these sports you have seen, which are proper to the spring, and others of like sort, as giving wenches green gowns, making garlands for fences, and tricking up children gay. Have I bestowed all my flowery treasury and flower of my youth?
A small matter. I know one spent in less than a year £850 in mustard, and another that run in debt in the space of 4 or 5 years about £14,000 in lute strings and grey paper.
Oh, monstrous unthrift! Whoever heard the like? The sea's vast throat, in so short a tract of time, devoureth nor consumeth half so much. How well mightst thou have lived within thy bounds?
What talk you to me of living within my bounds? I tell you, none but asses live within their bounds. The silly beast, if they be put in a pasture that is eaten bare to the very earth, and where there is nothing to be had but thistles, would rather have fall soberly to those thistles and be hungry starved than they will offer to break their bounds. Whereas the lusty courser, if he be in a barren plot and spy better grass in some pasture narrow joining, breaks over hedge and ditch, and to go, ere he will be pent in and not have his belly full. Peradventure, the horses lately sworn to be stolen carried that youthful mind who, if they had been asses, would have been yet extant.
As we may see, the longer we live, the more we shall learn. I never thought honesty an ass till this day.
This world is transitory. It was made of nothing, and it must to nothing. Wherefore, if we will do the will of our high Creator, whose will it is that it pass to nothing, we must help to consume it to nothing. Gold is more vile than men. Men die in thousands and 10,000, yea, many times in 100,000 in one battle. If then the best husband be so liberal of his best handiwork, to what end should we make much of a glittering excrement, or doubt to spend at a banquet as many pounds as he spends at men in a battle? Methinks I honor Geta, the Roman emperor, for a brave-minded fellow, for he commanded a banquet to be made him of all meats under the sun, which were served in after the order of the alphabet, and the clock of the kitchen following the last ditch, which was 2 miles off from the foremost, brought him an index of the several names. Neither did he pingle when it was set on the board, but for the space of 3 days and 3 nights never rose from the table.
Oh, intolerable lying villain! That was never begotten without the consent of a whetstone.
Ungracious man, how fondly he argueth.
Tell me, I pray, wherefore was gold laid under our feet in the veins of the earth, but that we should contaminate and tread upon it, and so consequently trend thrift under our feet? It was not known till the Iron Age, donec facinus avancit mortalis, as the poet says, and the Scythians always detested it. I will prove it, that an unthrift of any comes nearest a happy man, in so much as he come nearest to beggary. Cicero saith, summum bonum consists in omnium rerum recausione, that it is the chiefest facility that may be to rest from all labors. Now, who doth so much vacari a rebus, who rests so much? Who hath so little to do as the beggar? Who can sing so merry a note as he that cannot change a groat? Qui nil est, nil deest, he that hath nothing wants nothing. Now, on the other side, it is said of the car, omnia hebeo nec quiquam abeo. I have all things, yet want everything. Muti mio vitio vertunt quio egeo, saith Marcus Cato in Ulys Gellius. At ego illis quia nequiunt eger. Many upbraid me, saith he, because I am poor. But I upbraid them because they cannot live if they be poor. It is a common proverb, devesque miseroque. A rich man and a miserable, nam natura possis contenta, none so contented as the poor man. Admit that the chiefest happiness were not rest or ease, but knowledge, as Herodotus Alcidamas and many of Socrates' followers affirm. Why? Pupertas omnes pedocet artes. Poverty instructs a man in all arts. It makes a man hardy and venturous, and therefore it is called of the poets Pupertas audax, valiant poverty. It is not so much subject to inordinate desires as wealth or prosperity. Non habet unde suam pupertas pascat amorem. Poverty hath not wherewithal to feed lust. All the poets were beggars. All alchemists and all philosophers are beggars. Omnia mea mecum porto, quoth Bias, when he had nothing but bread and cheese in a leather bag and 2 or 3 books in his bosom. Saint Francis, a holy saint, I never had any money. It is madness to dote upon muck. That young man of Athens, Elianus makes mention of, may be an example to us, who doted so extremely on the image of fortune, that when he might not enjoy it, he died for sorrow. The earth yields all her fruits together, and why should we not spend them together? I thank heaven on my knees that have made me an unthrift.
Oh, vanity itself! Oh, wit ill spent! So study thousands not to mend their lives, but to maintain the sin they most affect, to be hell's advocates 'gainst their own souls. There, since thou givest such praise to beggary, and hast defended it so valiantly, this be thy penance. Thou shalt ne'er appear or come abroad, but Lent shall wait on thee. His scarcity may countervail thy waste. Riot may flourish, but finds want at last. Take him away that knoweth no good way, and lead him the next way to woe and want.
And exit there.
Thus in the paths of knowledge many stray, and from the means of life fetch their decay.
And there we're going to pause before Will Summer has to take an in-breath. Yeah, there's a, exit there, or I don't know, late capitalism, conspicuous consumption. And it's Summer's sort of judgment and punishment on there is really quite clever. Actually, I think that's a really neat. Your spring's going to happen during Lent, so the time when you can't enjoy your excess. That's very neat and tidy. A lot of stuff to unpack there. A lot of stuff. Well done, by the way, Dan. There's some tricky stuff in there. Alan.
I must admit, I mentioned Lily earlier, and I do wonder because the number of Latin quotes in there reminds me very, very strongly of Lily and that genre of the not exactly lightly worn pedantry.
Well, it is structured like a debate, basically. We have, this a series of debates perhaps being structured here. It's going back sort of pre-Lily in that sense of his influences going all the way back. Many decades, in fact, hundreds of years. I think all of those influences are at play there. This play is doing a lot of interesting things. I'm really quite fascinated by it, especially doing it at this sort of late stage as well, having done so many of the things that came before now. The timing is good. I'll go to Eric, then I'll go to Rachael, then I'll go to Helen.
It's interesting because it seems like a weird cross between like a morality play and a musical at this point. In terms of content, you've got like sort of Summer moralizing about who's going to take over and like sort of spending properly and that kind of thing, and then but you also have like Ver coming in like ta-da, I'm so fabulous and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is we've got a payoff here between massive didactic arguing going on and dancing, and song and dance, and sort of making fun of the whole idea of having these of the whole proceedings. Rachael.
I just think it's interesting that Summer is being portrayed as an old man, because I think of like Old Man Winter and that age being put with Winter. So I feel like this is just an interesting portrayal of Summer. And then also all the people that he's quoting, I wonder if some of those are Latin books that you'd read in a Latin class. So I mean he's obviously a lot younger than Summer, but I wonder if he's meant to be like a schoolboy age.
Yeah, excellent thoughts. Helen.
Yeah, I'd like a shout out to Rachael and Dan for singing, and rather nicely. I got the impression that this was for a private performance. I mean, it was from something Will Summers said about damaging the Lord's floor. With the dancing, and I did get a sort of private performance vibe from it.
Oh yeah.
We may have more to say about the auspices later on. I'll go to Lynn.
Yes, Helen. Also in the pre-prologue, he says something about between trying to learn my lines and getting dressed and everything. I haven't supped tonight. There are a couple of clues in that passage that the performance is taking place in the evening, which it would not have done in the public theater. It would have been in the afternoon. So an evening performance would have been at court or in an aristocratic household.
Or the conceit of the play, if you think of it as a play within a presentation, the conceit is that it is characters may lie to set their own sequence, to set the play world that they're in. But yes, it could be both in that sense. And Eric.
The way the characters were introduced reminded me of that awkward part of what was it? All for I think it was All for Money, where the sins were being introduced, where like sin gives birth to pleasure, and that kind of thing. And it's like, yes, you're here to take over my money, but actually, I'm going to call my officers first. And then sort of summoning them turns basically naming them summons them.
And just going back to Rachel's point about the age of summer, it's because obviously seasons pass, so there's the question of what happens to the world after summer passes. Maybe that's what's going on there. Helen.
Yes, I was going to say about that I think summer started off in June or whenever he came in, quite young and frisky, and has aged and aged and aged, and he should in fact have died if it hadn't been for the Queen's progress.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of little there's so many fascinating little lines and little nods, and it's full of life and potentially of the times, and this and of course the Queen is not in the best of health. Well, no, she is. She's perfectly fine. Sorry, I'm getting things confused in my head. Ignore me. Move on. Other thoughts from the room? Nothing? Okay. We will move forward. We will see who's next on the list of potential bequeaths. So Will Summer is, broadly speaking, left to hold sway for a little bit.
Hi-ho! Here's a coil indeed to bring beggars to stocks. I promise you, truly, I was almost asleep. I thought I had been at a sermon. Well, for this one night's exhortation, I vow by God's grace never to be good husband while I live. But what is this to the purpose? Her come to foul, as the Welshman says, and her pay and halfpenny are for her seat, and her hear the preacher talk, and her talk very well, by giz, but yet I cannot make her laugh. Go to a theatre and hear a queen's face, and he make her laugh, and laugh her belly full. So we come hither to laugh and be merry, and we hear a filthy beggarly oration in the praise of beggary. It is a beggarly poet that writ it, and that makes him so much commended because he knows not how to mend himself. Well, rather than he shall have no employment but lick dishes, I will set him a work myself to write in praise of the art of stooping, and how there never was any famous thresher, porter, brewer, pioneer, or carpenter that had straight back. Repair to my chamber, poor fellow, when the play is done, and thou shalt see what I will say to thee.
Vertumnus, call Solstitium.
Solstitium, come to the court. Without, peace there below. Make room for Master Solstitium.
Enter Solstitium like an aged hermit carrying a pair of balances with an hourglass in either of them. One hourglass white, the other black. He is brought in by a number of shepherds playing upon recorders. You'd be glad that my recorder is out of reach.
All hail to summer, my dread sovereign lord.
Welcome, Solstitium. Thou art one of them to whose good husbandry we have referred. Part of those small revenues that we have, what hast thou gained us? What hast thou brought us in?
Alas, my lord, what gave you me to keep but a few days' eyes in my prime of youth, and those I have converted to white hairs. I never loved ambitiously to climb or thrust my hand too far into the fire. To be in heaven, sure, is a blessed thing, but Atlas-like to prop heaven on one's back cannot but be more labour than delight. Such is the state of men in honour placed. They are gold vessels made for servile uses, high trees that keep the weather from low houses, but cannot shield the tempest from themselves. I live to dwell betwixt the hills and dales, neither to be so great to be envied, nor yet so poor the world should pity me. Inter utrumque tene medio tutissimus ibis.
What dost thou with those balances thou bearest?
In them I weigh the day and night alike. This white glass is the hourglass of the day, this black one the just measure of the night. One more than other holdeth not a grain, both serve time's just proportion to maintain.
I like thy moderation wondrous well, and this thy balance weighing, the white glass and black with equal poise and steadfast hand, a pattern is to princes and great men how to weigh all estates indifferently, the spirituality and temporality alike, neither to be too prodigal of smiles, nor too severe in frowning without cause. If you be wise, you monarchs of the earth, have two such glasses still before your eyes. Think, as you have the white glass running on, good days, friends, favours, and all things at beck. So this white glass run out. As out it will, the black comes next. Your downfall is at hand. Take this of me, for somewhat I have tried, a mighty ebb follows a mighty tide. But stay, Solstitium, hadst thou naught besides? Naught but day's eyes and fair looks gave I thee?
Nothing, my lord, nor aught more did I ask.
But hadst thou always kept thee in my sight? Thy good deserts, though silent, would have asked.
Deserts, my lord, of ancient servitors are like old sores, which may not be ripped up. Such use these times have got that none must beg, but those that have young limbs to lavish fast.
I grieve no more regard was had of thee. A little sooner hadst thou spoke to me, thou hadst been heard. But now the time is past. Death waiteth at the door for thee and me. Let us go measure out our beds of clay. Naught but good deeds hence shall we bear away. Be as thou wert, best steward of my hours, and so return into thy country bowers.
Here Solstitium goes out with his music as he comes in.
Fie of honesty? Fie! Solstitium is an ass. Purdy, this play is a gullimer fray. Fetch me some drink, somebody. What cheer? What cheer, my heart? Are not you thirsty with listening to this dry sport? What have we to do with scales and hourglasses except we were bakers or clock keepers? I cannot tell how other men are addicted, but it is against my profession to use any scales but such as we play at with a ball, or keep any hours but dinner or supper. It is a pedantical thing to respect times and seasons. If a man be drinking with good fellows late, he must come home for fear the gates be shut. But when I am in my warm bed, I must rise to prayers, because the bell rings. I like no such foolish customs. Actors, bring now a blackjack and a rundelet of Rhenish wine, disputing of the antiquity of red noses. Let the prodigal child come in his doublet and hose, all greasy, his shirt hanging forth, and ne'er a penny in his purse, and talk what a fine thing it is to walk summerly, or sit whistlingly under a hedge, and keep hogs. Go forward in grace and virtue to proceed, but let us have no more of these grave matters.
Yeah, speaking the critic there from the Times. It's interesting that we go from a scene that is more reflective on, again, quite ideas based, and Will is, is it like having your cake and eating it? Saying, I've written a scene that is a bit heavy, but it's all right. I've got Will Summer here to say that was a bit heavy, wasn't it, people? It seems to be a trick that this play is playing a lot of getting away with things by pointing out that it might be a bit much. So even with the dancing earlier, if one of those dances they quite liked, one of them they didn't, and it's like going, well, that one wasn't very well rehearsed. Lots of enthusiasm, but and therefore getting away with it in that sense, and making it interesting. It was an interesting little back and forth. I mean, I'm not saying that I actually found that. There's something quite interesting about this idea of the two hourglasses and the way that that's all depicted. Alan?
I'm just wondering whether Solstitium is the personification of the solstice. Is that how people are understanding it?
Yeah, that seems to be the logic there. Yeah.
Times
are changing.
It took me a while to sort of work that one out.
Other thoughts in the room? Rachael, then Eric.
There's something about Will Summers, speeches and prose that remind me of Glass of Government, how he would get these big things by Nomadicus. And I remember for that when we were wondering during the first sessions if it was supposed to be all serious or comedic, and just this play, I feel like that other play was definitely something like this, like you would have somebody just shooting out jokes. And so that other play that we read that one time, where that guy kept asking for the clown as he was drunk, and I feel like he must have been asking for Will Summer.
Yeah. We want a clown. Give us a clown. Yeah, this is boring. This stuff, they're saying words. Give me the dancing maids again. Eric.
Yeah, you can kind of imagine him throwing like paper airplanes or something. I think that's sort of, like, this is boring. I want them back. He was sort of drunk. I was going to say, is it the solstice or equinox? Because they are two different things.
I cannot answer that at the moment. I'll see if thoughts in the room. Helen.
I assume it's the solstice. I mean, both concepts were available. But there's quite a lot of preaching to princes here. Ye monarchs of the earth, if you be wise stuff. And then I love the Will Summer, the prodigal son, who he calls the prodigal child. He implies that he was better off sitting under a hedge whistling and keeping hogs. That was he was in a good place, rather than that being that he dropped to the bottom of the pile. It's nice.
Yeah, and Will, it is also about that point in the play where someone might be going, yeah, I fancy a beer now. So can we have table service? That'd be lovely. Yeah, thanks. And you can imagine that the way that plays. I mean, I think the danger with Will Summer is, making sure Will Summer does not do anything while Summer and everybody else is doing their bit, because that's a great way to get yourself killed. mysteriously found in their dressing room. One performance. Police baffled.
I mean, he is the heckler from hell.
Yeah. But you've got to make sure it's rigidly defined as to what his parameters are in the company. Otherwise, it's just going to run riot. Otherwise, it stops being funny, actually. I mean, that's the important thing, is actually you have to control. It's got to be meted out. And, again, Summer is, the rest of the play is functioning and it is making sense. Is doing things. Other thoughts before we move on, Eric?
Well, it's not like we've not seen this before, though. Like, we do have sort of clown characters, in A Taming of a Shrew and that kind of thing, where they kind of just sit there and go, yeah, this is... Yeah.
Yeah, we've basically got our own Muppets sitting in a corner, making their commentary as they go along. Anyway, we're going to find out who's next on Summer's list of people to see. So Summer, call for the next person, please.
Vertumnus, will Sol come before us?
Sol, ut re mi fa sol. Come to church while the bells toll.
Enter Sol, very richly attired, with a noise of musicians before him.
Ay, marry, here comes majesty in pomp, resplendent Sol, chief planet of the heavens. He is our servant, looks he ne'er so big.
My liege, what cravest thou at thy vassal's hands?
Hypocrisy, how it can change his shape, how base is pride from his own dunghill put. How have I raised thee, Sol? I list not tell, out of the ocean of adversity, to sit in height of honour's glorious heaven, to be the eyesore of aspiring eyes, to give the day her life from thy bright looks, and let naught thrive upon the face of earth, from which thou shalt withdraw thy powerful smiles. What hast thou done, deserving such high grace? What industry or meritorious toil canst thou produce to prove my gift well placed? Some service or some profit I expect. None is promoted but for some respect.
My lord, what need these terms betwixt us two? Upbraiding ill beseems your bounteous mind. I do you honor for advancing me. Why, 'tis a credit for your excellence to have so great a subject as I am. This is your glory and magnificence, that without stooping of your mightiness or taking any wit from your high state, you can make one as mighty as yourself.
Oh, arrogance exceeding all belief. Summer, my lord, this saucy upstart Jack that now doth rule the chariot of the sun, and makes all stars derive their light from him, is a most base, insinuating slave, the sum of parsimony and disdain, one that will shine on friends and foes alike, that under brightest smiles hideth black showers, whose envious breath doth dry up springs and lake, and burns the grass, the beasts can get no food.
No dunghill hath so vile an excrement, but with his beams he will therefore exhale. The fens and quagmires tithe to him their filth. Forth purest mines he sucks at gainful dross. Green ivy bushes at the vintner's doors he withers, and devoureth all their sap.
Lascivious and intemperates. The wrong of Daphne is a well-known tale. Each evening he descends to Thetis' lap. The while men think he bathes him in the sea. Oh, but when he returneth whence he came down to the west, then dawns his deity. Then doubled is the swelling of his looks. He overloads his car with orient gems and reins his fiery horses with rich pearl. He terms himself the god of poetry, and setteth wanton songs unto the lute.
Let him not talk, for he hath words at will, and wit to make the boldest matter good.
Bad words, bad wit. Oh, where dwells faith or truth Ill usury my favours reap from thee, usurping soul, the hate of heaven and earth.
If envy unconfuted may accuse, then innocence must uncondemned die. The name of martyrdom offence hath gained, when fury stopped a froward judge's ears. Much I'll not say, much speed, much folly shows. What I have done you gave me leave to do, the excrements you bred whereon I feed, to rid the earth of their contagious fumes. With such gross carriage did I load my beam. I burned no grass, I dried no springs and lakes, I supped no mines, I withered no green boughs. But when I ripe and harvest, I was forced to make my rays more fervent than I want. For Daphne's wrongs and scapes in Thestis' lap, all gods are subject to the like mishap. Stars daily fall, 'tis use is all in all, and men account the fall but nature's course. Vaunting my jewels hasting to the west, or rising early from the greyed morning, what do I vaunt but your large bountyhood, and show how liberal a lord I serve? Music and poetry, my two last crimes, are those two exercises of delight, wherewith long labors I do weary out. The dying swan is not forbid to sing. The waves of Hebrus played on Orpheus' strings, when he, sweet music's trophy, was destroyed. And as for poetry, words' eloquence, dead Phaeton's three sisters' funeral tears, that by the gods were to electrum turned, not flint or rock of icy cinders flamed, deny the force of silver falling streams. Envy enjoyeth poetry's unrest. In vain I plead. Well is to me a fault, and these my words seem the slight web of art, and not to have the taste of sounder truth. Let none but fools be cared for of the wise. Knowledge own children, knowledge most despise.
Thou know'st too much to know to keep the mean. He that sees all things oft sees not himself. The Thames is witness of thy tyranny, whose waves thou dost exhaust for winter showers. The naked channel plains her of thy spite, that laidst her entrails into open sight, unprofitably born to man and beast, which like to Nilus yet doth hide his head. Some few years since thou lett'st o'erflow these walks, and in the horse race headlong ran at race, while in a cloud thou hidst thy burning face. Where was thy care to rid contagious filth, when some men wet-shod with his waters drooped? Others that ate the eels his heat cast up, sickened and died by them empoisoned. Sleeptest or keep'st thou then admittest sheep? Thou drovest not back those flowerings of the deep.
The winds, not I, have floods and tides in chase. Diana, whom our fables call the moon, only commandeth o'er the raging main. She leads his wallowing offspring up and down. She waning, all streams ebb in the year. She was eclipsed when that the Thames was bare.
A bare conjecture, builded on perhaps. In laying thus the blame upon the moon, thou imitatest subtle Pythagoras, who, what he would the people should believe, the same he wrote with blood upon a glass, and turned it opposite against the new moon, whose beams, reflecting on it with full force, showed all those lines to them that stood behind, most plainly writ in circle of the moon. And then he said, not I, but the new moon. Fair Cynthia persuades you this and that, and with like collusion shalt thou now blind me. But for abusing both the moon and me, long shalt thou be eclipsed by the moon, and long in darkness live and see no light. Away with him, his doom hath no reverse.
What is eclipsed will one day shine again. Though winter frowns, the spring will ease my pain. Time from the brow doth wipe out every stain.
And exit Sol. It would be fair to say that they're not sun worshippers here. They're not fans. I mean, Winter obviously is really not a fan of the sun. No dunghill hath so vile an excrement, but with his beams he will henceforth exhale. It really, really goes off on that. And there is an interesting connection there. You know, in the heat of the summer, that's when you get the worst plague hits for the kind of plague that's going to hit them. So the sun on that level is this idea of filth and contagion and smells. They really do go together. Briony.
I was really perplexed by that little Pythagoras bit that we just had. Is that based in some sort of history, mythology? Is there any relevance to that? That was a bit strange. Anyone know?
It's I am just looking at it now. I don't know. I'm sure it's a reference to something. I'm sure it absolutely is. I, off the top of my head, don't know. Any thoughts in the room? Anyone who is more clued in on the world of Pythagoras than I am?
I just had the same question. Is that a story is it made up for this play, or is that a story? Him writing something in a mirror and holding it up to the moon. I'd never heard that.
Yeah, it seems like, there's you're like some philosopher who does some sort of trick to get their argument to work, which involves reversing things with a mirror. That's sort of how I'd pass it, but I genuinely don't know. Alan.
I have a feeling that it probably is a legit story. I've got a very vague recollection of something about that. And given the number of academic references that we've had already in the first third of this play, I suspect that it was a known trope that would have been beaten into the school children in the usual manner.
As discussed at the beginning of the week.
Yep.
Valentina. No, you. Eric.
Well, I just looked it up, and because the internet is a wealth.
I was going to say I was vamping for someone to Google it.
Well, I don't know how reliable this is, but according to this, supposedly Pythagoras was one of the first people who proposed that the Earth is round. So through determining some sort of I don't know, geometrical or algebraical thing that proves that the Earth is round using the light of the moon.
Okay, go with that.
I can read it to you, but I mean, it's
no, that's fine. Well, I mean, I think for the purposes of this session, we don't need an absolute answer, but I think we're other thoughts about this this exchange between. You'd have thought Summer and Sol they'd be best mates, really, wouldn't you? You'd think they'd be, Summer gets a lot of sun by the nature of Summer, but no, not a fan. Helen.
I mean, Summer seems to be suggesting that he created the sun, and that the sun is very much dependent on Summer as opposed to the other way round.
But to be fair, Sol does come across as a bit of an arse. To have so great a subject as I am, there is a bit of pride there. Aren't you lucky that I'm your friend? Rachael.
Before, when he was leaning on winter and autumn, summer, wasn't he talking about his fields and that they had turned from green to something else? And then here he's talking about the Thames and that it's very dry this year, that he was taking that up with Sol. So maybe maybe there was a drought in this summer and there's there's crop damage, and that's what he's taking with him.
It's not impossible. We are about to enter a plague season, so maybe some hot weather precedes it to help set things up. I'll go to Briony, then Helen, then Lynn.
I guess one of the reasons why Summer's probably not a big fan of the sun right now is because Summer's supposed to be quite old at this point. So I guess that's when the sun is starting to bugger off and do its own thing, maybe. I don't know.
And got his own music as well. Everyone's got a theme tune. I'm quite interested in what the theme tune for Sol is. Noise of musicians. I'd love that description. It's like wall of sound territory. Helen.
Yeah, about the harvests, the 1590s were notorious for a run of bad harvests, but I don't think they'd started this early. So I have no information to give you on that.
It's notoriously difficult to get exact data, but I would have thought the general shape of whether it was a warm year or a cold year was data we can probably find out there. Lynn?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, yes, the sun is being blamed for bad weather, but it's kind of, it's not that it's hot and dry. It's that you remember the summer is accusing the sun of sucking up the Thames and then making it rain. So actually the bad harvests were more often caused by early rain and then the crops rot rather than being too hot and dry. That was the reason that crops failed more often is that rain came early and things started to mold and rot rather than it being dry long enough for the grain to get harvested.
Yeah, and Sol's basically saying, I didn't want it to be so hot. I was under orders. That wasn't my fault. I was just, So yeah, that's a very good point. And yes, Eric.
I just love the bit before they take Sol away. So it's like, I will have my revenge.
The sun. I mean.
Right. I also like the Vertumnus is outre mi fa sol moment when song comes in. I like that. Rachael, and then we will move on.
Also, the Sol bringing up all these different, lovers of, Daphne and stuff like that, and speaking about music and poetry, just they're accusing him of playing around and doing his job badly. I don't know. I just think Sol and Vera are funny characters because they are in charge of things, but they seem to have a cattish nature. Is that what you call it? A rakish nature?
Yeah, that fits reasonably well. Now, of course, all of these, when they come in, they have these sort of big trains, potentially, of either singers, musicians, or dancers, or all of the above. One wonders also whether Will Summers' bits in between are just simply for everyone who's just walked off stage to put on the next costume and then come straight back on again. Even assuming that effectively you've got a different actor as their primary role is one of the big speakers, but that everybody else then still has to step down to be one of the dancers or singers. So this is potentially quite a busy play for anyone, because in a sense you've got as long as Will Summer can vamp for you to get changed, potentially, depending on the auspices and the size of the company. Anyway, we're going to go on. Will Summer has some potentially some vamping to do. You've just seen the sun exit.
I think the sun is not so long in passing through the 12 signs as the son of a fool hath been disputing here about had I wist. Out of doubt the poet is bribed of some that have a mess of cream to eat before my lord go to bed yet, to hold him half the night with rough of the rummin of Eleanor. If I can tell what it means, pray God I may never get breakfast more when I'm hungry. Troth, I am of opinion he is one of those hieroglyphical writers that by the figures of beasts, plants, and of stones express the mind as we do in ABC, or one that writes under hair, as I have heard of a certain notary, Hystanius, who, following Darius in the Persian wars, and desirous to disclose some secrets of import to his friend Aristagoras, that dwelled afar off, found out these means. He had a servant that had been long sick of a pain in his eyes, whom, under pretence of curing his malady, he shaved from one side of his head to the other, and with a soft pencil wrote upon his scalp, as on parchment, the discourse of his business. The fellow all the while imagining his master had done nothing but anoint his head with a feather. After this he kept him secretly in his tent till his hair was somewhat grown, and then willed him to go to Aristagoras into the country, and bid him shave him as he had done, and he should have perfect remedy. And so Aristagoras shaved him with his own hands, read his friend's letter, and when he had done, washed it out, that no man should perceive it else, and sent him home to bite him a nightcap. If I wist there were any such knavery, or Peter Bale's brachygraphy, under Saul's bushy hair, I would have a barber, my host of the Marion's Head, to be his interpreter, who would wet his razor in his Richmond cap and give him the terrible cut like himself. But he would come as near as a quart pot to the construction of it. To be censures not superfluous, Saul should have been beholden to the barber, and not to the beard master. Is it pride that is shadowed under this two-legged sun, that never came nearer heaven than Doubler's Hill? That pride is not my sins, Loven's Hall, where I was born, be my record. As for covetousness, intemperance, and exaction, I meet with nothing in a whole year but a cup of wine for such vices to be conversant in. Pergite porro, my good citizen, and multiply the sins of your absurdities, till you come to the full measure of grand hiss, and you shall hear how we shall purge Rome with censoring your imperfections.
Yeah, it feels like this is a big costume change, doesn't it? Feels like there's a lot to sort out. It's a clever way of getting messages secretly across. It's quite laborious. You've got to wait. Your message can't be that urgent because you've got to wait for somebody's hair to grow back. But it's quite clever, and he's got to not sweat in between, presumably. But yeah, it's an interesting story. Not really sure what it's got to do with the price of fish, but yeah, Alan.
I'm just wondering whether Will Summer in this is a role model for Ronnie Corbett.
He does feel like
with the wild digressions.
He does feel like he needs a big chair, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. I've got a lovely story to tell you. Yeah, it's an odd one. It's an odd one.
It's a lovely story, though.
Yeah, it's nice. It does feel like vamping. Briony.
Firstly, do I have something written on my head?
Yeah.
No, but that, to me, that's just confirmed that, yeah, he is definitely there as a distraction, as something to give people backstage a bit of time, and or to just mediate the show a bit. And if you're losing the audience, then start heckling with them, or it's a very clever little device. I've not seen it used in a play before like that.
Are there thoughts in the room? No. Okay. Let's get our next set of people in. See if we get any dancing stuff or anything along those lines. Maybe not. I'm not sure what we're going to get this time. So Summer, let's have some more people in, please.
Vertumnus, call Orion.
Orion, my lord, thou must look upon. Orion, gentleman dog keeper, huntsman, come into the court. Look you bring all hounds and no band dogs. Peace there, that we may hear their horns blow.
And enter Orion, like a hunter with a horn about his neck, all his men after the same sort of hallooing and blowing their horns. Halloo! Halloo!
Sirrah, wast thou that called us from our game? How durst thou, being but a petty god, disturb me in the entrance of my sport?
'Twas I, Orion, caused thee to be called?
'Tis I, dread lord, that humbly will obey.
How haps thou left'st the heavens to hunt below? As I remember, thou wert Hyrieus' son, whom of a huntsman Jove chose for a star. And thou art called the dog star, art thou not?
Please, your honor, heaven's circumference is not enough for him to hunt and range, but with those venom-breathed curs he leads, he comes to chase health from our earthly bounds. Each one of those foul-mouthed, mangy dogs governs a day. No dog hath his day, and all the days by them so governed the dog day's height. Infectious foresters of meteors from carrion that arise, and putrefied bodies of dead men are they engendered to that ugly shape, being naught else but ill-preserved corruption. 'Tis these that in the entrance of their reign the plague and dangerous eggs have brought in. They are and bark at night against the moon, for fetching in fresh tides to cleanse the streets. They vomit flames and blast the ripened fruits. They are death's messengers unto all those that sicken while their malice beareth sway.
A tedious discourse built on no ground, a silly fancy autumn hast thou told, which no philosophy doth warrantize, no old receiving poetry confirms. I will not grace thee by refuting thee, yet in a jest, since thou railst so against dogs, I'll speak a word or two in their defence. That creature's best that comes most near to men, that dogs of all come nearest, thus I prove. First, they excel us all in all outward sense, which no one of experience will deny. They hear, they smell, they see better than we. To come to speech, they have it questionless, although we understand them not so well. They bark as good old Saxon as may be, and that in more variety than we. For they have one voice when they are in chase, another when they wrangle for their meat, another when we beat them out of doors. That they have reason, this I will allege. They choose those things that are most fit for them, and shun the contrary, all that they may. They know what is for their own diet best, and seek out for it very carefully. At sight of any whip they run away, as runs a thief from noise of hue and cry. Nor live they on the sweat of others' brows, but have their trades to get their living with, hunting and coney catching, two fine arts. Yea, there be of them as there be of men, of every occupation more or less. Some carriers, and they fetch, some watermen, and they will dive and swim when you bid them, some butchers, and they worry sheep by night, some cooks, and they do nothing but turn spits. Chrysippus holds dogs are logicians, in that by study and by canvassing they can distinguish twixt three several things, as when he cometh where three broad ways meet, and of those three hath stayed at two of them, by which he guesseth that the game went not, without more pause he runneth on the third, which, as Chrysippus saith, insinuates, as if he reasoned thus with himself, either he went this, that, or yonder way, but neither that or yonder, therefore this. But whether they logicians be or no, cynics they are, for they will snarl and bite. Right courtiers to flatter and to fawn, valiant to set upon their enemies, most faithful and most constant to their friends. Nay, they are wise, as Homer witnesseth, who, talking of Ulysses coming home, saith all his household but Argus his dog had quite forgot him. Ay, his deep insight, not Pallas' art in altering his shape, nor his base weeds, nor absence 20 years could go beyond any way delude that dogs physicians are. Thus I infer. They are ne'er sick, but they know their disease, and find out means to ease them of their grief. Special good surgeons to cure dangerous wounds, for stricken with a stake into the flesh, this policy they use to get it out. They trail one of their feet upon the ground, and gnaw the flesh about where the wound is, till it be clean drawn out, and then, because ulcers and sores kept foul are hardly cured, they lick and purify it with their tongue, and well observe Hippocrates' old rule, the only medicine for the foot is rest. For if they have the least hurt in their feet, they bear them up, and look they not be stirred. When humours rise, they eat a sovereign herb, whereby what cloys their stomachs they cast up. And as some writers of experience tell, they were the first invented vomiting. Shamest thou not, Autumn, unadvisedly to slander such rare creatures as they be?
We called thee not, Orion, to this end, to tell a story of dogs' qualities. With all thy hunting, how are we enriched? What tribute payest thou us for thy high place?
What tribute should I pay you out of naught? Hunters do hunt for pleasure, not for gain. While dog days last, the harvest safely thrives. The sunburn pot to finish up fruit's growth. There is no bloodletting to make men weak. Physicians in their cataposia or little elinctoria, masticatorum, and cataplasmata, their gargarisms, clysters, and pitched cloths, their perfumes, syrups, and their triacles, refrain to poison the sick patient, and dare not minister till I be out. Then none will bathe, and so are fewer drowned. All lust is perilsome, therefore less used. In brief, the year without me cannot stand. Summer, I am thy staff and thy right hand.
A broken staff, a lame right hand I had, if thou wert all the stay that held me up. Nihil volentum perpetuum, no violence that liveth to old age. Ill-governed star that never bodes good luck, I banish thee a 12-month and a day. Forth of my presence come not in my sight, nor show thy head so much as in the night.
I am content, though hunting be not out. We will go hunt in hell for better hap. One parting blow, my heart, unto our friends, to bid the fields and huntsmen all farewell. Toss up your bugle horns unto the stars. Toil findeth ease, peace follows after wars.
Exit. Here they go out, blowing their horns and hallooing as they came in. Halloo, everyone, please.
Hello.
Faith, this scene of Orion is right prandium caninum, a dog's dinner which, as it is without wine, so here's a coil about dogs without wit. If I had thought the ship of fools would have stayed to take in fresh water at the Isle of Dogs, I would have furnished it with a whole kennel of collections to the purpose. I have had a dog myself, that would dream and talk in his sleep, turn round like Ned Fool, and sleep all night in a porridge pot. Mark but the skirmish between Sixpence and the fox, and it is miraculous how they overcome one another in honourable courtesy. The fox, though he wears a chain, runs as though he were free, mocking us, as it is a crafty beast, because we, having a lord and master to attend on, run about at our pleasure, like masterless men. Young Sixpence, the best page his master hath, plays a little and retires. I warrant he will not be far out of the way when his master goes to dinner. Learn of him, you diminutive urchins, how to behave yourselves in the vocation. Take not up your standings in a nut-tree, when you should be waiting on my lord's trencher. Shoot but a bit at butts, play but a span at points. Whatever you do, memento mori, remember to rise betimes in the morning.
And we'll just pause there. Defense of dogs. Lots and lots of stuff about dogs. I'm assuming that this is to do with the latter days of hunting. There's hunting seasons and dog days and are specific times in the year towards the latter days of summer. Or specific point in summer. I don't know. I'm speculating based on what's being said. So I'll let somebody else finish that thought. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, hunting would not have been that popular before harvest. on the basis that a group of huntsmen and dogs careering through a field of standing crops would have been decidedly unpopular.
So so the reason why all this is sort of going together, so it's again something vaguely seasonal going on there. Eric.
I was going to say that we're slowly moving towards autumn, because it's very obvious. You start with like spring, and then you've got the solstice, and then Sol, and then sort of Orion hunting and so on. Yeah.
Hunting figures, spending, I say, a lot, and apparently dogs were the inventors of vomiting. So we can. Did I misunderstand that? That was one of the things.
They vomit flames.
Yeah.
Well. Thank you, dogs. Because it's actually the whole physical process that the body goes through. It's quite a fascinating process, so you should look it up. It's very interesting. Anyway, there's bits in there that are very very old school interlude stuff, like sudden random lists of physicians' cures and things, which is very John Haywardy at one point. And others earlier. And just also the way Will Summer just goes, right, well, this is what I've just heard, so I'm going to riff on some stuff about dogs, because I've got to fill some time. So he's very like the compere in a stand-up show, isn't he? He's just going, right, well, that last act was quite good. Who's coming up next? I'm feeling cabaret for this. Seasonal-based cabaret. That's the theme for the show, people. Briony.
As far as I'm concerned now, this play is good, because we've just had a couple of pages of talking about how great dogs are, so it runs for me. And I hope Scooter enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
Scooter came to say, thanks for that, Orion / Briony. It was awesome.
I'm going to say that speech or elements of those speeches feel very detachable and usable in a dog-based context now. So I'm thinking, have a little look at that for usable little bits and bobs, because there's some nice stuff in that. Again, we keep having people referencing plague, and it's very much on people's minds at the moment. It's like they know what's coming. Eric, then Rachael.
I was going to say that you could couple this with like the sort of like, if you were doing this as a performance, you could couple this with like play of the weather, where you've got like people turning up to complain to basically Zeus / Jove / Jupiter about what they want, and then it's just, I think it would fit well.
Yeah, it's feeling like it's a bit of a callback to that kind of idea that we've got. It's an excuse for a series of debates that come in around a basic theme, and it's very reminiscent of that. Play of the Weather full cast audio adaptation is available on the podcast now. Rachael.
No, I was gonna ask more about the plague stuff. Like, did they already have a couple plagues, and were dogs carriers of it, or did they associate dogs with carrying plague? Because that's what I thought. That's what I thought Autumn was getting at, and by calling them dirty. And then Orion just went off on his dog defense of dogs.
Helen.
Yeah, bubonic plague was pretty well endemic, but there was a bad plague in 92-3. There was a theory, I think it was mainly an Italian theory, that dogs were carriers of plague. So they killed all the dogs in some town or other, and then had far too many rats, which was not necessarily the right thing for plague spreading, except that now we don't think it was rat fleas, we think it was lice. Oh. That's the latest theory, that it was lice. But there you go. But yes, there were people who believed that dogs were incidentally responsible.
Lynn, did you want to?
Yeah, I had heard. I remember hearing. I can't remember where that story where evidently there's some kind of correlation between animals and plague outbreaks. So we're going to kill all the cats and dogs, but that just meant that the vermin that were on the dogs and cats that were carrying the plague bacillus jumped onto other hosts usually human. And so it ended up making things worse rather than better. That's the version of that story that I heard. So, yeah.
Okay, we're going to go into our final sequence for this session. And did someone mention the harvest? Summer.
Vertumnus, call harvest.
Harvest, by west and north, by south and by east, show thyself like a beast. Goodman harvest, yeoman, come in and say what you can. Boom for the scythe and the sickle there. Oh, it's probably room for the scythe and the sickle there.
Yes, it should be, yes. Make room, make room. Enter harvest with a scythe on his neck, and all the reapers with sickles, and a great black bowl with a posset in it, borne before him. They come in singing.
Merry, 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 cheery, 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 troll the blade bowl to me. Hey, derry, derry, with a poop and a lerry, I'll troll it again to thee. Hooky, hooky, we have shorn, and we have bound, and we have brought harvest home to town.
Harvest, the bailiff of my husbandry, what plenty hast thou heaped into our barns? I hope thou hast sped well, thou art so blithe.
Sped well or ill, sir, I drink to you on the same. Is your throat clear to help us sing? Hooky, hooky.
Here they all sing after him.
Hooky, hooky, we have shorn, and we have bound, and we have brought harvest home to town.
Thou, Corridon, why answerst not direct?
Answer? Why, friend, I am no tapster to say anon, sir, but leave you to molest me, good man tawny leaves, for fear, as the proverb says, leave is light, so I mow off all your leaves with my scythe.
Mock not and mow not too long, you were best not, for fear we wet your scythe upon your pate.
Since thou art so perverse in answering, harvest, hear what complaints are brought to me. Thou art accused by the public voice for an engrosser of the common store, a carle that has no conscience nor remorse, but doth impoverish the fruitful earth to make thy garners rise up to the heavens. To whom givest thou? Who feedeth at thy board? No alms, but an unreasonable gain, digests what thy huge iron teeth devour. Small beer, coarse bread, the hinds and beggars cry, whilst thou withholdest both the malt and flour, and givest us bran and water, fit for dogs.
Hooky, hooky, if you were not my lord, I would say you lie. First and foremost, you say I am a grocer. A grocer is a citizen. I am no citizen, therefore no grocer. A hoarder up of grain? That's false, for not so much of my elbows eat wheat every time I lean upon them. A carle? That is as much as to say a coney catcher of good fellowship. For that one word you shall pledge me a carouse. Eat a spoonful of the curd to allay your choler. My mates and fellows sing no more merry, merry, but weep out a lamentable hooky, hooky, and let your sickles cry, sick, sick, and very sick, and sighed, and for the time, for harvest your master is, abused without reason or rhyme. I have no conscience. I'll come nearer to you, and yet I am no scab nor no louse. Can you make proof wherever I sold away my conscience or pawned it? Do you know who would buy it or lend any money upon it? I think I have given you the pose. Blow your nose, Master Constable. But to say that I impoverish the earth, that I rob the man in the moon, that I take a purse on the top of St. Paul's steeple, by this straw and thread, I swear you are no gentleman, no proper man, no honest man to make me sing, oh man in desperation.
I must give credit unto what I hear, for other than I hear, detract I naught.
Aye, naught seek, naught have. An ill husband is the first step to a knave. You object. I feed none at my board. I am sure if you were a hog, you would never say so. For sir, reverence of their worships, they feed at my stable table every day. I keep good hospitality for hens and geese. Gleaners are oppressed with heavy burthens of my bounty. They take me and eat me to the very bones, till there be nothing left but gravel and stones. And yet I give no alms, but devour all. They say, what a man cannot hear well, you hear with your harvest ears. But if you heard with your harvest ears, that is, with the ears of corn which my alms cart scatters, they would tell you that I am the very poor man's box of pity, that there are more holes of liberality open in harvest's heart than in a sieve or a dust box. Suppose you were a craftsman or an artificer, should come to buy corn of me, you should have bushels of me, not like the baker's loaf that should weigh but 6 ounces, but usury for your money, thousands for one. What would you have more? Eat me out of my apparel, if you will, if you suspect me for a miser.
I credit thee, and think thou wert belied. But tell me, hast thou had good crop this year?
Hey, good plenty, which was so sweet and so good that when I jerted my whip and said to my horses, but hey, they would go as they were mad.
But hay alone thou say'st not, but hay-ree?
I sing hay-ree, that is hay and rye, meaning that they should have hay and rye, their bellyfuls, if they will draw hard. So we say, way hay, when they go out of the way, meaning that they shall want hay if they will not do as they should do.
How thrive thy oats, thy barley, and thy wheat?
My oats grow like a cup of beer that makes the brewer rich. My rye like a cavalier that wears a huge feather in his cap, but hath no courage in his heart, hath a long stalk, a goodly husk, but nothing so great a kernel as it was wont. My barley, even as many a novice is cross-bitten, as soon as ever he peeps out of the shell, so it was frost-bitten in the blad, yet picked up his crumbs again afterward, and bade Philpot hostess, in spite of a dear year. As for my peas and my vetches, they are famous and not to be spoken of.
Aye, such country buttoned caps as you do want no fetches to undo great towns.
Will you make good your words that we want no fetches?
Aye, that he shall.
Then fetch us a cloak bag to carry away yourself in.
Plough swains are blunt and will taunt bitterly. Harvest, when all is done, thou art the man. Thou dost me the best service of them all. Rest from thy labours till the year renews, and let the husbandmen all sing thy praise.
Rest from my labours and let the husbandmen sing my praise? Nay, we do not mean to rest so. By your leave, we'll have a largesse amongst you ere we part.
A largesse, a largesse, a largesse.
Is there no man who will give them a hiss for a largesse?
No, that there is not, Goodman Lungist. I see Charity waxeth cold, and I think this house be her habitation, for it is not very hot. We were as good even put up our pipes and sing merry, merry, for we shall get no money.
And here they all go out singing.
Merry, merry, cheery, 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 trowel the black bull to me. Hey, derry, derry, with a pump and a larry, I'll trowel it again to thee. Hooky, hooky, we have shorn, and we have bound, and we have brought harvest home to town.
Well, go thy ways, thou bundle of straw. I'll give thee this gift. Thou shalt be a clown while thou livest. As lusty as they are, they run on the score of George's wife for their posset, and God knows who shall pay Goodman Yeoman for his wheat sheaf. They may sing well enough, trowel the black ball to me, trowel the black ball to me for 100 to 1, but they will all be drunk ere they go to bed. Yet of a slavering fool that hath no conceit in anything but in carrying a wand in his hand with commendation, when he runneth by the highway side, this stripling Harvest hath done reasonable well. Oh, that somebody had the sense to set his touched suit on fire, so that lighten him out. If I had but a jet ring on my finger, I might have done with him that I list. Had spoiled him, had I took his apparel prisoner, for it being made of straw, and the nature of jet to draw straw unto it, I would have nailed him to the pommel of my chair till the play were done, and then have carried him to my chamber door, and laid him at the threshold, as a wisp or a piece mat to wipe my shoes on every time I come up dirty.
And thus we run out of time for more this session. Lots, I think, to say about Harvest. Harvest's line of jokes are very much on the... some of them are... I've noted down on my usual thing of the Basil Brush variety of where you really need to go bum, bum at the end of a line. There's a sort of quality to some of those hay gags that are rather fun. It's that sense of... at the end when it's basically who's anyone holding up the begging bowl? Are we going to get any more from this audience? No, we're not. Okay, we're off. Quality to that. So there's something interesting. I do like Will Summers' idea that Harvest would make a really good thing to wipe your feet on. So presumably that refers to the nature of Harvest's costume, which is probably very strawy. Lots of interesting things in there. Some fun songs. I like the songs. I always like the songs. Thoughts on the room about Harvest. Rachael.
I wonder about the humor of this. If it's the Will Summers seems to be very out and out, just funny and poking fun at things, and he's giving people time to change. But with Harvest in the last scene, I wonder if there's some sort of doubling up where he's coming in with the sickle, with these sickles, and there seems to be some plague stuff that they're talking about in the last one. And if this isn't supposed to be both, harvest and maybe death, because there is, Will Summers says at one point, memento mori type thing, or if it's just supposed to be a remember you'll die, and there's that double humor.
I'm not getting that from Harvest per se. I mean, I think yes, it is there in the image, but Harvest here is the nature of the shtick. I didn't get that, but I could be wrong. How did other people feel about Harvest? Lynn.
I don't know what to make of Harvest, but I just want to observe some structural things or some formal things that he speaks in prose, which not all of these characters do. Orion was the most recent one, and he spoke in a long blank verse piece. So the Harvest speaks in prose, and it's more conversational. His chunks of text are not as long. It's more of a conversation with Summers. So the rhythm is quite different than a character comes on and makes a long speech. I don't know what kind of effect that would have. That's just an observation.
And accusing Harvest of being a corn hoarder, and that sort of holding on to things, that sort of thing they're defending against. Helen, then Briony.
Yeah, I felt that it was Harvest was the only one that Summer has really had any time for at all. I mean, all the rest he's dismissed with various words of opprobrium, but Harvest he seems genuinely pleased with. And certainly all the stuff about the engrossers was a growing problem in the 1590s, that people were buying up and then selling because of the scarcity at much higher prices than they were allowed. And This was a particular problem in Norfolk, actually, Norfolk and Suffolk.
Briony.
Yeah, I was just going to say the format thus far seems to be that people come on and summer's not very nice to them. And I think even the Harvest got a little bit of that, but then kind of answered back to it, like, well, hang on a minute, you're all saying this about me and it's not true. But yeah, it just seems a bit of a strange format thus far. It's not making Summer more likable as the titular character.
Summer is grumpy as hell, all the way through. And yeah, Harvest, I think it's the fact that Harvest doesn't seem to be driven by pride or anything. You know, he's just quite a jovial person, and maybe the jokes are going a bit far sometimes in terms of situation. You know, Autumn's not impressed with Harvest. You know, just answer the question directly. You know your place. But yeah, the Harvest seems to get away with it, and yeah, asks for a boon on the way out from the audience, and doesn't seem to be. They're not going to get anything. Charity waxeth cold. So move on. Alan.
Yeah, I must admit the character who's only appeared very briefly with sort of interjections is the winter one that I've been reading. And the more I see the way the speeches are, the more I'm seeing Victor Meldrew. You know, the grumpy old cynic.
Yeah, it is interesting how grumpy, Autumn and Winter are, and how their characters we will perhaps get more out of as we go further into the seasons, as it were. Briony.
But you'd kind of expect that with like winter and maybe autumn in contrast to a nice, bright, chipper sort of summer. But it's all a bit, strange.
I say
the only light one really has been there. You know, which is the springtime folly.
Well, that's
Orion was quite pleased with himself.
Yeah, I mean, a Harvest. I mean, that's also the nature of the seasons, you know, in the sense that spring, yes, there's all this promise of life and expectation, but actually it's a time of relative scarcity because you know the new food sources haven't fully come through yet. Whereas harvest time is a time of excess because you suddenly have all this abundance of crops that you've got to process or eat. And store for the coming winter, and I say it's spring when you really start running out of things. That's why we use them up around Christmas time, because you know some stuff is just not going to last. The fun stuff is starting to go out of past its sell-by date. Alan.
And it's why Lent is where it is, because effectively the food sources have all run out. Therefore, let's provide a religious reason why you're all starving to death.
So yeah, which brings us back to what they were saying to Ver earlier. So yeah, the pride of spring on that sense of coming out being all flourishy and looking lovely, and isn't spring it's come and isn't everything going to be great? When in fact actually spring is a bit of a lie in that sense. We are into extra time, so it's time for final thoughts on a text that is quite different, I think, to lots of echoes from other stuff, but it is a bit different from some of the stuff we've done before. Eric, any final thoughts?
It's like I feel weird to say that this is fun, but like kind of it is in a way, and. Yeah, I'd want to see it like at pace where, then again, at pace, someone would get like Valentina has been dumped with all the heavy speeches. I mean, heavy like long, being not heavy as in terms of content, speeches. I don't know, and I don't know how you would do stuff like music playing on Zoom. That would get complicated very quickly. But yeah, it just sounds like fun so far.
No, I think that's perfectly valid point. It does seem to be quite fun. It is doing other things as well, but it is paying for those other things with dollops of fun, which seems reasonable to me. Dan, sorry, Eric, did you have more?
No, I was just going to add that it has that sort of King Lear quality to it.
Dan, any final thoughts?
I think I want to see how the rest of this play goes, but my impressions now are that my main impression is really that Nashe is really trying to put a showcase out there for himself and then whoever happens to be acting in this, because yeah, it's, as it's been observed earlier, how this is like a morality, it's also like a mask, and really this is just a very oral comedy. It's showing off that he's a rhetorician, really showing off, like some of like Vera's showing off a bit, but it doesn't seem to be. I still find this with all of the songs and the way it's so well written that I don't mind so much that he's showing off, unlike a couple of the other playwrights that we will come across there. I find it very entertaining. I think that yeah, if it's almost as if you trained in these classical texts like he did, then you're going to get more out of this play. If not, at least he's going to tell you what some of these things mean, which is what I noticed in Vera's speech. So yeah, you're being talked down to, but you're still getting let in there. It's a bit of a cross between the elite and the popular culture. I feel like he's trying to rewrite how plays are done by the rhetoricians, by the elites, and say, you know what, this is actually for everybody, and let me show you how to do it. This is how.
Because it's full of different cultural reference points as well. The things that a popular audience might get. That again, they're not necessarily very good for us, but not so bad for this room. But for a general audience, that's an interesting thing. You're talking about, he's enjoying himself. Perhaps there's possibly just a little hint of the smug under the surface here, which is sometimes a dangerous position for a creative to put in. Tamara, any final thoughts?
So much. But a lot has been said already. Like, it's a wordy comedy, so sometimes us reading it was a bit hard, especially because I had a bigger cat in my lap who demanded attention constantly. But I think there is a huge opportunity of, if you have the money for it, to make these costumes and everything and the music a big spectacle. So I don't think on stage I would have that issue with the long speeches and all of that. I think what I would like to look at is how much of all these little references about historical things that we then ended up discussing come across when you do it in front of an audience without explaining it. I think some of it, like mentioning of the plague and things like that, hit different now, to use an internet term. But I'd still be keen to figure out how much of it would actually land, if that makes sense, without historical context. Yes, big costumes.
And we may have some additional data later on about how these things land, but that's for another time. Briony, any final thoughts?
Just in agreement generally with what's been said already, and I think like from what Dan was saying, it's more like that V for Vendetta type character, where yes, he's well educated, he's a little bit smug, he's having fun with these words, but it's not in a really stuffy, pompous way. Whereas sometimes we get people just like banging a load of Latin out or something to be pretentious. It's a little bit more cleverly done, but it's done in a way that is fun. Like, you can tell whoever wrote this enjoyed the language.
Yeah, and that is rather important, and that's the thing, that the performers need to be enjoying it as well and finding the potential. I mean, I said before we started recording, doing this stuff at pace, and I think that is to a degree quite important with some of this, but also actually because we're doing it that way, and partly because we don't quite have time to linger on some of it in this initial session, is that actually we're missing elements that actually a little bit of slowing down and playing with a moment, it loses something a bit. Alan, any final thoughts?
It's an interesting piece. It bounces along at a fair old rate. I think it could be done. You could almost set it as being almost a comedy show, comedy club, or a variety show. I think the point about, yes, big costumes, big numbers, becomes almost infinitely expandable, because the entrances with attendant nymphs, shepherds, and whatever other random characters you want could be a lovely way. If you did it as a youth theatre production, you could probably get just about everybody who's ever expressed an interest involved. The one thought I've got, I think you mentioned that Will Summer was actually a real but historic character at the time.
Yes.
So this was an actor portraying Will Summer.
Oh yes, he's definitely dead.
I do just wonder whether Nashe potentially wrote that role for himself.
Such speculation is indeed possible. We, however, will move on to just actually on Alan's point about the scale of it, and that sort of comedy club cabaret sort of element. It could expand or contract, and sort of be both huge and also not actually have a massively large cast, because you've got these sort of 4 people who are on stage continually, and then everybody else always exits and comes back on again. So actually the numbers of those nymphs and those people could actually be relatively compact. So it could be huge. It could also be weirdly extravagant but small. And I'm quite interested in that, especially as scaling up a show. Helen, any final thoughts?
Yes, Dan rather preempted me, because the thing that struck me about this was that it's a masque, which we haven't really had so far. We've been full of interludes, but not masks. So this is one of these, it seems a much later entertainment than 1592 to me. I mean, I'm sure the date's right, but that's the way it seems. Candlelight, gorgeous costumes, excellent dancing, some very fine singing, and an evening's entertainment, rather than the interlude, which is quite often none of those things.
Except when it is. I mean, that's the thing, is that
yeah,
they're
we
all
don't
on a
know
spectrum.
how it was.
And earlier masks, we haven't done earlier masks because the texts by and large don't survive. So they're all part of the same universe to a degree. So it's both, and in the sense that mask sort of is the thing that continues, shall we say, in a way that interludes don't. So in a sense, they are the same thing but different. So yes.
Fair enough.
But yes, and that's the continuum that the more we explore, actually, and the more we start looking at other court entertainments, we will start seeing more of those parallels. And those are the gaps I'm hoping to fill in over the next 6 months or so. But there's a long way to go to get there yet. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yes. So, I'm enjoying it. I want to echo Eric that this is fun. I'm having fun with this. And the production conditions that have popped into my mind is, I think it would be really fun to do this as part of, or an event in another larger outdoor event, like in the United States, we have this Renaissance fair thing. I don't know if that's an international phenomenon or not, but a Renaissance fair or a farmer's market or something like that with entertainment. It's a big outdoor event, and this is a show that somebody puts on as part of that. So it's an open space. You have nature around you. People bring their dogs. So when you're doing the dog routine, there are people standing around with their dogs, and you can go out in the audience and pet the dogs. I think that would be really fun. Well, that's very different from what I think the original production circumstances would be. I just think there'll be a fun way to do it. And I, as a one-time costume designer myself, oh boy, would I love to do costumes for this. Either it with like giant budget, so you can do this sort of, Las Vegas style, like I've got a wheat headdress because I'm Harvest, or on a shoestring where you go to the the thrift stores and find like a giant green shirt and then like draw leaves all over it with a Sharpie marker. I just think it would be super fun to do either way.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, just because we have some idea of what the original performance conditions might have been doesn't mean we have to follow them. We can do whatever we like. They're all dead. Rachael, any final thoughts?
I'm very interested in this so far because it's doing so many different things. And I still think the last two scenes are interesting. The thing about the dogs, if people really believed they had plague, and you have Orion having this argument with this other guy about dogs, it's kind of like now like how people are still going to gyms or going out and traveling, and it's a little bit of contention with people, because of the spread of it. And maybe that's an argument of are you spreading this disease just because you want to keep the entertainments that we had before? And then even though I think I think this is all delivered as a comedy, but I think there is some weight and some real argument that this is making. And Harvest's stuff, I think, is comedic, but some of the words that he says are grim. Like when he says, "Don't be merry, merry anymore, but lament," and then saying that people eat his body until it's bones, and then like gravestones and stuff. It's kind of a little metal.
And finally, Will Summer. How was it for you? Final thoughts.
Yeah, by and large, I agree with what everyone said. I think, obviously we are sight reading it, but there's so many opportunities for comedy, and there's so much in Will's speech. There's so much that can be unpacked and brought out in different ways. It's amazing. I don't know, like from the beginning, I kind of expected something more like Night of the Burning Pestle, which I think we might not have done yet. But I'm glad it's something different, because like I would love to see how Will Summer works in a real audience today. I think some of the stuff you might have to like on the spot, just because he's referencing people out like on the spot, like maybe change it and just like modernize it a bit. But
yeah, I think with any clown role, there is always that little element of always the joke's always going to get tweaked a little bit, so long as you're not veering too much from the intent. Then go for it, I think. In fact, whatever gets a cheap laugh. Frankly, I don't care, as long as the audience keeps laughing when it's supposed to be a comedy. That's kind of yes, we haven't done Night of the Burning Pestle yet, but it's coming there. It's we're nearly there. We're nearly into the sunny uplands of the 17th century. Those days are coming. They are coming. Promises. Any other final thoughts anyone wants to throw in? I've been around the room, I think. Otherwise, I am going to close the session. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye. With a poop and a Larry.